Chapter 79, Status Effects. Have you thought that it might not be obvious to him? Leaf's words come back to Blue time and again during the trip to Celadon City, despite all the distractions along the way. Bretta rejoins them at the station in Saffron, along with Slava, and a recently discharged and physically rehabilitated Sumi, and the 8 of them take the subway to the western edge of the city, before taking out their bikes to travel the rest of the way. No part of Kanto's mainland has as many fire Pokemon as the area around Celadon, and they all want at least one for their battles against Erica's gym. It's strange traveling with such a large group. 4 didn't feel that much different than 3, but with 8, they can stagger their nightly watches so that everyone can alternate getting a full night's sleep, and it makes finding and capturing wild Pokemon easier than ever. Their size also scares off every Pokemon that sees or hears them coming, but Elaine guides them to areas that are less traveled, then works with Sumi to track down Growlithe, Vulpix, and Houndour dens. Of course, they still proceed carefully and plan out their encounters. But the fact that they outnumber their targets in every battle makes things much easier than catching Pokemon, was with a party of 3 or 4, as does the strength of the group's Pokemon. And now, as night slowly falls, and he holds his new Arcanine's ball in the lamplight of their camp, he can't help but feel disappointed? Bretta asks as she eases down beside him. Glenn is feeding his new Vulpix. MG has her earphones in as she watches a video in her bedroll. Elaine is showing Slava and Sumi her favorite game, and Lizzie is talking quietly with her sister as she walks around the camp's perimeter. A little, Blue admits. Bretta has changed since her badge matches, humbled in a way that he finds hard to know how to interact with compared to the girl who used to challenge him more than anyone else. But one thing that they all gained from Vermilion was a feeling of being safe with vulnerability around each other, and it was Leaf that helped him notice how little he's opened up to them about personal things. Arcanine was kind of my spirit Pokemon for years. I've been imagining the kind of epic battle that I'd have when I finally caught one for so long. Only for it to turn out to be about 20 minutes of planning followed by a 30-second battle that went without a hitch, Bretta finishes, smiling slightly. Blue sighs. I gave exactly one command to Maturin. It was just kind of anticlimactic, you know? Yeah, for sure. Bretta shrugs. But I'm not complaining. I get why most trainers don't travel in groups this big. We barely got any real battle or capture experience today, and didn't encounter a single Pokemon that we didn't track. And at the same time, it feels like what we needed, after everything. Sumi in particular needed something easy to get her confidence back. Yeah. Blue watches the recently healed trainer smile at something Elaine says, their faces lit by her screen. It's the first time since she joined up with them that she seems to have relaxed, and he suspects that she didn't get much sleep the past 2 nights. Makes sense. I'm happy no one got hurt, really, and if it hadn't gone so quick we might not have had time to find the Vulpix and Houndour packs too. He'd missed his chance at a Vulpix yesterday, but got a Houndour just before they broke for camp instead, which he's definitely satisfied with. He thought he'd be lucky if he got just one fire Pokemon, and even if it's weaker than some of his other Pokemon, the Houndour will still be a huge help against Erica's gym and Sabrina's eventually. I just feel like if all my captures are going to be like this from now on, why not just buy my Pokemon? It would leave more Pokemon for you guys to catch. It had been luck that he ended up with an Arcanine. Glenn, Slava, and Bretta got Growlithes during the main battle, while Lizzie got the first parent. Standard procedure dictated they wait to see if the other parent would appear, since capturing a whole family of any species that live in packs while leaving a dad or mom could trigger it to start rampaging in search of them. After rolling higher than the others, Blue half expected the other Arcanine not to show up, maybe already killed or captured by someone else. But less than an hour later it appeared with the thoroughly cooked remains of a Persian hanging from its jaws. It barely had time to drop its meal before their combined attacks hit it, and seconds later it was caught. Unsure what to do with the Persian remains, a brief debate had broken out before those with weaker stomachs wandered off a distance while their new captures were summoned to eat as a family. Blue voted that they try to feed them all together, as often as makes sense moving forward. He thinks Leaf and Aiko would approve. True, it would have been cool to get an Arcanine, Bretta says. But I think it still matters that most of your Pokemon have you listed as their original trainer, especially if they're going to be part of your core team. The alternative is, I buy battle-bred Pokemon for my team. Blue shrugs. I don't want to. I'm sure there are enough people who think I'm just buying all my Pokemon anyway, but, well, not that you should care what others think. But I say save your money for the Pokemon you probably won't be able to catch, unless you plan to stay in Fuchsia for months. Blue smiles and shakes his head. There are some trainers whose strategy revolves around capturing all the strongest Pokemon they can before getting into any of the harder challenge matches. But even if he's mostly given up on having a record-making run on the league, he doesn't have time or money to waste hoping against hope for a Chansey or Scyther, or Kangaskhan or Dratini. Then, speaking for myself at least, I'm happy with what happened today. Besides, you'll be kicking yourself for wasting money if that whole Pokemon cloning thing takes off anytime soon. He snorts. That would make the divide between those who have money and those that don't even bigger. I wonder if they would get banned from league matches. The conversation continues until the others start going to bed, and Blue offers to swap for tonight's first watch, knowing he'll be up late anyway. His thoughts eventually turn back to Red and his conversation with Leaf. He checks Red's online profile, scrolling idly for any indication of how he's doing, but his updates are all impersonal things, shared articles and academic questions about psychic phenomena. Not a single casual slice-of-life post, not even a meme. Blue eventually closes the tab, feeling an odd mix of frustration and sadness. He never did learn how to engage his following. There were plenty of comments and discussion in his posts, but not nearly as much as he deserved, given his accomplishments. Celadon looms in the distance the next day, long before they reach it, sprawling impressively around the buildings that reach to the sky in the afternoon light. He remembers being awed the first time he saw it. Pallet Town seemed so small by comparison, and he wished that they could live here instead, with its constant activity and wide range of Pokemon training halls, coordinator contests, and of course the gym that was more like a giant indoor-outdoor garden. Now he finds himself focusing more on how to navigate all the hustle and bustle of a city that's twice the size of Viridian, Pewter, Cerulean, and Vermilion, with so many cars on the road that there's a separate bike lane that often has its own traffic stops and jams. By the time they make it to the gym's front office, it's late enough that they decide to just register for pre-challenge matches and classes in the coming days. Afterward, they head to the Celadon department store and spend a couple hours restocking their supplies, eating at the food court, and buying some new training tools. As he looks for a saddle harness, excited about finally having a Pokemon he can ride on, Blue spots the wall of various whistles and thinks back to when he was trying them out with Red and Leaf at the Viridian Mall on the second day of their journey. Have you thought that it might not be obvious to him? He shakes the memory away, bothered by the idea that, even if he was largely right in what he thought, what he said was wrong, or he said it the wrong way. He knows why it keeps pricking at him. He's learned to recognize when his pride doesn't want to admit something. Instead, he distracts himself by going to the floor where new products are being showcased, including tech from the cruise convention. The Game Freak exhibit is particularly interesting, and he's sufficiently absorbed by the virtual demonstrations until the rest of the group is ready to leave. They're large enough that when they reach the trainer house, people stop and take notice as they line up to register for a room, and the attention only increases as they're recognized. He's come to expect that by now, and so walked in with his back and shoulders already straight, face calm. Glenn, Elaine, Bretta, and Lizzie all also seem used to it by now, though Slava and Sumi are clearly taken aback by the attention, and MG never seems comfortable with public scrutiny unless she's battling. See you guys in the morning, Blue says once he gets his room assignment, and heads off ahead of the others to put his pack away and shower. Afterward, he lies in bed and just lets himself rest, thoughts shifting from how nice it feels to be in a bed, stiff and basic as it is, to the upcoming gym battles, to all the messages and mail he should be answering but hasn't been. Losing Leaf as a travel partner is rough, but losing her as a group PR manager is almost as bad. Somehow, of all the people in his new, bigger party, no one's particularly skilled at managing things like that. But then, none of them were raised by professors either, and the limelight is new to them. He spends half an hour doing the best he can, waiting to see if Glenn or Slava were assigned to the same room as him. Eventually, he gets bored and goes downstairs to train his new Arcanine and Houndour, letting them get used to his commands and testing their reaction time and attack pools. As he suspected, his Houndour is fairly weak, unable to even do a Fire Fang yet, let alone a flamethrower. It will need a lot of training to be effective against the kind of Pokemon Erica would bring out for a 4th badge challenge, and Sabrina for a 5th. Arcanine, on the other hand, seems ready to go, particularly with the TMs he picked up to cover for his weaknesses. He didn't realize it during the battle. Everything happened so fast. But his Arcanine is actually rather scarred, not disfigured or crippled, but with jagged marks along its chest and face that make it clear it survived some scraps. "Overall, you look intimidating as hell," he murmurs as he sits down beside his Pokemon and pats the ground so that the Arcanine sits beside him. He reaches up and runs his fingers through its warm, thick fur. "So what should I name you?" He never picked one out, despite everything. Had some ideas, but it felt wrong to settle on something before he even met his Pokemon. He'll have to before his Arcanine's debut with Erica, but that gives them time to get to know each other. "Something anger-related would fit," he muses. "But maybe you're not an angry sort. Don't want to project that onto you." His new Pokemon rolls a big gray eye toward him and huffs out a breath before looking away. Not rebellious, but not eager to please either. "That's all right, big guy. You're not a puppy, and I won't treat you like one." Blue keeps his fingers moving to find a spot the big canine likes, letting his eyes drift closed as the smoky smell of its fur surrounds him. "But I do want to make sure you're happy, so let me know if this starts working for you." The trainer house cafeteria is oddly silent as he walks in the next morning, still a bit groggy from his late night in the training room. Most people on their phones or tablets watching what looks like a news report. He didn't get an alert for any incidents, but still feels his pulse kick up as he gets his food and joins the 3 other early risers in the party, Elaine, MG, and Slava, who are all watching it too. "What's going on?" he asks, leaning over to see Celadon's mayor addressing a crowd. Slava pulls an earplug out. "Police raided the Rocket Casino this morning." "All right." He blows on his porridge, glancing around to find most people still watching their screens. "So why is this a big deal?" "The warrant was for stolen property, but there's a rumor that it was actually a new kind of Pokemon." "What?" "Yeah, police didn't find anything, and the mayor is saying she's in communication with the owner of the casino and President Sylph." Slava's brow shoots up. "Who was the one reporting stolen property, apparently? To try and get to the bottom of it." People start taking their headphones out or putting their phones down as the interview apparently ends. Blue quickly takes out his phone and checks his local newsfeed, then scans the story. The rumor apparently originated from something Rocket Casino announced this morning, a new promotional campaign aimed at trainers, with Pokemon as the prizes. The list is full of common catches, but also Abra, Clefairy, Pinsir, Scyther, Dratini. Abra have dropped in price until they're about as cheap as Clefairy, and while both are still valuable Pokemon, Pinsir and Scyther are protected species only found in Fuchsia's Safari Zone, and Dratini, which go for tens of thousands of dollars easy, if you're not picky about any of its attributes. But that's not what has his heart racing. Mystery Grand Prize. A brand new, never-before-seen Pokemon, offered exclusively by the Rocket Casino. A new Pokemon. Red must be flipping out. A confusing mix of emotions chase the thought again, and he grimaces as Leaf's words come back to him, quickly scrolling to the comments. Lots of skepticism, of course, and guesses as to what they might be offering that would technically count as a new species while not actually being one. There are also people who are mad at them for offering the supposed new species as a gambling award rather than selling it directly to researchers. But as someone points out, the promotional ad didn't specify battle trainers, and coordinators and researchers are likely to be attracted to the casino for it too. "It's got to be fake, right?" Slava asks. "Your grandpa would know if a new Pokemon was caught. It would have to be recorded in the dex." "There's precedent," MG points out. "New evolutions that were never seen before. The Pokemon's conditioning still carried through, so they were safe to live with, but the Pokedex couldn't identify them until new code was written." "Right." Slava frowns. "Rocket Casino wouldn't have a revival lab, though, so if it's real, it must be a new evolution. It's just a casino, though. Where would they even get a newly evolved Pokemon? Any trainer that discovered one would make more money selling it to some lab or corporation, wouldn't they? It could be something else entirely. MG shrugs, spinning her fork in her noodles. I'm just saying it's not impossible, but a casino might actually pay the most for it when you consider how many people will come to try and win it. What are you thinking, Blue? Elaine asks. I know that look. He pushes away the urge to speculate about the new Pokemon. It could be immensely useful for battling just from the fact that it would be a mystery to everyone else, but he has more practical goals in sight. I'm thinking that regardless of how true the grand prize turns out to be, this is a chance to get a Scyther, or even a Dratini. It'll take a lot of luck to win anything good, Slava says, voice doubtful, or else they wouldn't bother, right? Most of the games are chance, yeah, Blue says and grins. But not all. There was one I remember where you hit a button to stop each slot in the machine. It really just came down to reflexes. Gramps only brought us there once, but I made out like a bandit, turning $20 of tokens into nearly 300 in just a couple hours. Traded them in for a new sim headset. If it's still there, it might be worth trying, depending on how the rules are set up. The rest of the group joins them one at a time, as Blue looks into the contest rules as he eats. Apparently, it's a lottery, with each token turned in adding to your chances of winning. He's in the middle of forwarding the site to Leaf and Gramps to ask what they think when he suddenly gets a message from... Blue frowns at his screen, rereading the message twice. So, I just got invited to meet with leader Erica. Did anyone else? I'm going to go ahead and guess no, Glenn says, not sounding surprised as he blows on his porridge. You know her? We've met before. You know how she worked with Gramps on some grass Pokemon research during her journey? She's gone to the lab once in a while since then, helped with other discoveries. Even came to the house a few times when I was younger. What's she like? Sumi asks, as she pours extra syrup over her pancakes. Noticing the alarmed look from Lizzie, she grins. A few days out of the hospital hasn't been enough to make up for how much I've missed unhealthy food. In interviews, she always seems so serene, MG says. I can never decide if it's just a persona or not. I always thought she just takes a big whiff of a Blossom before going on camera, Slava says, and the table chuckles. I'm serious. She always has some flowery grass Pokemon nearby. I just assume she's constantly buzzed. Well, she didn't always have them out at the house, Blue says. I think serene is a good way to describe her, though. And her commitment to traditional culture isn't just a gimmick. That's just how she is. Or it was around us, at least. Isn't the gym a bit cultish? Lizzie asks, seeming a bit nervous. I heard they have to sit around in circles where you can say whatever you want to each other, and the other person has to accept it. And all the members get in relationships with each other all at the same time. And they worship nature. Those are just rumors, Bretta dismisses. I have a friend who became a member, and she's mostly normal. Mostly? Erica didn't say what she wants? Elaine asks Blue. Nah, probably just wants to catch up in private. The last time I saw her was shortly after she became leader here, and Gramps brought us on a family trip to congratulate her in person. I was like 8 or something, so all of my conversations with her are pretty hazy. I bet it's more than that, Bretta says, as she absently slaps Glenn's hand away from her strawberries. The articles I read always make Erica seem like she plays a very passive leadership role outside of times of crisis. She might want to check and see if Blue plans to challenge her methods like he did Surge. Ooh, good point. Elaine smiles at him. Are you? Everyone turns to look at him expectantly, and he blinks at them, mouth full. He takes a moment to chew and swallow, then wash it all down before he says, yes. The table erupts with laughter and cheers, and Slava leans forward with a grin. Nice. I was hoping to get in on the scenario action. They looked fun. Up until they were super stressful, Lizzie mutters, and glances at Bretta, whose expression is stoically placid. It depends on how things look here, Blue says, trying to keep the conversation moving. What I said to Surge during my challenge is how I honestly felt, and I think it's the natural consequence of what he was trying to teach. Maybe it would be good if every gym did the same thing eventually, but no others are prepared to actually start implementing it right now, and I think it might actually be better if they didn't. So you're really planning to upend every gym? Slava chuckles. You're going to be the most controversial champion ever. You have no idea, Blue thinks. It would be a big change in practice, but I think it's the natural evolution of what the gyms are supposed to be for now. As for how they get upended, I'm not sure yet. There are a lot of different ways it can go. He looks around at them. He's been thinking about this for months now, but he wants them to be excited about the idea, to feel involved in it. What do you guys think? Glenn nods, face thoughtful. Right now, the idea is that every trainer making the circuit learns something different from each gym. Group battles would become Serge's thing, but there are probably other things the others could do. Like gym battles based on Pokemon coordination? Greta muses. No, that would blend the two too much, but maybe with a particular goal in mind, like capturing Pokemon with fake balls. Misty's gym already has a very different terrain. Maybe they can lean into that more. Fighting on different terrain would be interesting. Sumi smiles. I've always thought it was a bit silly that each gym sticks to a specific type for the challenge matches. They should focus on different battle strategies instead, like Brock doesn't just use rock Pokemon, but tanks in general, and Erica focuses on status effects. Well, I guess she does that anyway, but again, being limited to just grass Pokemon holds it back. I don't know, Elaine says, face thoughtful. I mean, of course it's not the most realistic, but it gives trainers a clear-cut sense of how to prepare for each gym, and a sense of continuity with others who went before and after them. It adds consistency. It also gives people who have aspirations other than battling a reason to go to specific gyms, Lizzie points out. I learned a lot about electric Pokemon at Vermilion. The Navy sends a lot of its people to Cerulean to train their water Pokemon. Koga is a region-wide expert on training people for poison containment and management. If gyms stopped focusing on single types, we would need new institutions to pick up a lot of the slack, probably with less efficient results. She didn't say gyms can't still focus on specific types, Greta says. Just that the challenge matches shouldn't. Maybe for the first badge or two, but after that, there should be a different focus, something more useful. Elaine nods. If the first few badge matches were focused on type, that would preserve most of the value I see in them. The conversation continues from there until everyone finishes eating, and Blue makes his way ahead of the others to meet up with Erica before the first class they signed up for begins. The city is even busier in the morning, and biking seems like it will barely save more time than walking. He kind of wants to ride his Arcanine, but on his way to meet a gym leader probably isn't the best time to try it for the first time, so he decides to just walk, which lets him compare the city's layout to his foggy memories of it. Before long, he gets a message from Leaf about the casino's rare Pokemon lottery, which reminds him that he never finished sending his own text to her and Gramps about it. Think him a go for it, he quickly sends as he walks. Can you run the numbers and tell me if it's worthwhile? Blue walks a block before he gets a response and blinks at the size of it. Blue, everyone and their mother is going to be running the numbers. You won't be able to find a single forum post on it without a dozen models in the comments. Famous statisticians will probably be in the news because they're offering a new Pokemon. And I bet Celadon gets swamped with professional gamblers who are hired by labs and collectors who hire professionals themselves to help them run their own numbers and guess other people's numbers because there's a new Pokemon being offered and you are crazy if you think you can win it. But good luck. D. Also check out this article on a new training method for faster response time from training. Blue smiles. Will do, but later got a surprise meeting with Erica Woe. Why? Dunno, you said you've met her before, haven't you? Yeah, a couple years ago also visited the gym when she became leader. Don't forget to compliment her on how much it's grown. Blue rolls his eyes. Okay, Leaf. Get it? Yeah, Leaf. I got it. Because it's a garden. Blue closes his phone, but he's smiling. Part of him was worried she'd bring up the red thing again, ask him if he's reached out yet. And he will. Soon. What he thinks of then isn't Red and his annoyingly fussy habits, but Aiko having a lot of the same ones, including setting an alarm so as not to forget something as soon as she thinks that she should do something later. His smile falls away, and for a moment the city around him feels a little grayer, the bustle of its people a little overwhelming. But he takes his phone out and sets an alarm for the evening to remind himself. Once he's done, he takes a breath and keeps going, steps a little quicker. Erica's gym is as unique as Surge's in its own way. Like its southern neighbor, most of Celadon Gym's classes and arenas are outdoors. But where Surge spread obstacle courses and track fields between his administrative buildings, Erica inherited a sprawling outdoor garden between the few administration buildings, complete with small ponds, gazebos, and vine-wrapped pergolas over both walkways and outdoor arenas for when it rains. Blue's not sure what would have happened to the gym if someone who didn't want to focus on grass Pokemon beat the last leader. Bug Pokemon would probably work too, thematically. Maybe they would just use a different part of the city as the gym and leave the current one as a satellite area. But Erica was the previous leader's third before she challenged for leadership and won, and kept most of the gym's culture and staff in place when she took over. When he arrives at the front office, which is indoors but full of potted plants and a glass back wall that makes it seem like it blends effortlessly into the start of the garden behind it, a gym member approaches and asks him to follow her. The gym's uniform is as far from Surge's monotone khakis as they could be, each member wearing a kimono that ranges from brightly colored, floral-patterned yellows and reds and violets to solid-colored navy and crimson and jade. He remembers reading about the ranks that the different hues and patterns denote at some point, but he's forgotten practically all of it, as it seemed silly. Now that he's been a gym member himself, he's more interested in the hierarchy Erica inherited and how she changed it, if she did at all. He walks through truly stunning gardens, full of artfully grown trees and flower beds, stone paths and bridges over rivers, past fields where trainers practice and classes are in session. What impresses him most compared to the last time he was here is how it does continue to impress him. Everything from the floral patterns to the arrangement of the trees to the cobblestone pathways looks meticulously planned for maximum aesthetic value, whereas he remembers the place being a lot more humble. There were flower beds, but they didn't line walkways as a guide, which he understands from the signs that show up at each intersection, pairing the flowers around it with the destination he would reach if he followed them. There was topiary, but it didn't include life-sized Venusaur and Executor, and a Tropius that towers over the dining hall beside it. Compared to Surge's gym, the overall effect should seem wastefully lavish, but somehow it all gives Blue the impression not just of beauty, but control. A will to bend nature to human whims and preferences. Maybe he's reading too much into it, and Erica just likes everything to look pretty. But if not, it's a perspective he can get behind, and it feels like a valuable bit of information on what kind of leader she is. He'll find out if it's right soon enough. He's eventually led to a gazebo by a lake, where the gym leader waits for him alone. From a distance it looks like a simple wooden structure, but as he gets closer he sees that the timber has a dark finish and is elevated to make it stand out from the others they've passed, varied in appearance though those were. The ring of seats inside it are cushioned, and the table in the center has been carved into the likeness of a tortera, a real bonsai tree growing out of the top in stark contrast to the monitor and keyboard that was also worked into the shell, though somehow it doesn't look out of place. Erica, dressed in a kimono with a pale green top and red skirt, isn't using her computer at the moment, however. Instead, she has a bay leaf on the seat beside her and seems to be grooming or examining its neck buds as it eats from a dish on the table. "It's good to see you again, Mr. Oak," the gym leader says once he's closer, and inclines her head to the girl that brought him, who bows and leaves. Blue picks a seat near the entrance, which is as close to across from Erica as he can get. At 27, she's the youngest member in the Indigo League, and he remembers being starstruck by her the last time they met. There's a little of that younger Blue still in him, but with 3 badges in his vest, he feels a lot more prepared to meet her gaze as an equal, to see her as a person, to consider how she acts out her superior role rather than as someone fundamentally above him. "I'm glad you finally made it back. You did promise you'd return to, take the whole gym down in a day, was it?" Blue grins, pleased she remembered his youthful boast, even as it reminds him of what happened in Pewter. He guesses that's intentional, but her smile doesn't seem to be mocking. "I'm glad to finally be back. And then, because it's true, the place has really grown." She nods her thanks. "As have you, in more ways than one. Tea?" She lifts a pot from its tray next to her keyboard, and when he nods, pours him a cup. He reaches forward and takes it. "Thanks." He tries to smell what kind it is, but the bay leaf's sharp, spicy scent makes it hard to smell anything else. He thinks of what Slava said and has to smother a grin. "How's your grandfather? I was glad to hear of his recovery, and sorry I couldn't see him. He's doing all right, you know. So far, so good. I'm glad. And Daisy? Busier than ever. I don't know how she finds the time, between her clients and the classes she started teaching and all the extra stuff she's been up to. Like helping Red's mom with something that she wouldn't tell Blue about, no doubt expecting him to dig into it on his own in an attempt to get him to talk to Red. How's your sister, the one that was training her Smeargle to paint her?" Erica's polite smile widens. "You remember that?" "Sure," he says, and shrugs as he blows on his tea. "Won't pretend to remember a lot of your visit or what was talked about, but it was a funny story. She has yet to succeed, but continues to enjoy the attempts." Blue nods and takes a sip, tasting a stronger version of the smell that surrounds him, and realization hits as Erica finishes gently scraping bits of dry leaf off her Pokemon's buds and opens the top of the teapot to add them to it. Is this safe?" He'd been about to ask a stupid question and changed it at the last moment to one that he hopes doesn't make him seem too cowardly or ignorant. "Quite safe," she says, and takes a sip from her own cup before starting to gently unfurl a different bud on her Pokemon's neck. It turns from its food for a moment to nuzzle her face, and she grins and pets its neck until it returns to its meal, letting her start harvesting again. "I've been cultivating Amber's family line since before I was a leader, and it's a hobby that I rarely have time for anymore. Still, I'm hoping to bring the tea to market by the end of the year, assuming it breeds true for one more generation." Blue already feels more alert and focused, far more than he would have by just the scent of the bay leaf, which at least he knows tend to have a caffeinating effect. He puts his cup down, looking into it as he gathers his thoughts. He expected small talk, but wonders when it will build up to something more, if it ever does. This place really has changed from what I remember. I like it. I'm glad, though I imagine you also have questions about it. Yeah, actually. Blue looks around. The kimono colors and patterns, do they mean something? Rank or duties or... They do. But more than that, Erica says with a smile. It's not information we share with those outside the gym, however. That said, I'll confirm guesses you get right, so long as I don't think you're doing so at random. All right, sounds like a fun challenge. He's encouraged by the implication that he'll be able to talk to her again, if not like this, then at least through private messages. I have a question for you now. What was the most important thing you learned at Vermilion Gym? Blue raises a brow. That's a tough one. I know I wasn't there long compared to most gym members, but it was pretty packed. I won't hold you to an answer, she assures him, but I'm guessing something came to mind at the question. Yeah, sure, he shrugs. What it means to lead others, I guess. It's not a single thing, but as a package deal, that was pretty valuable. And do you feel you've mastered it? Oh no, I was talking to a friend recently about how much more I have to learn about it, actually. Erica seems pleased by that, but her next words make the atmosphere of the conversation suddenly feel much less relaxed. And yet you still challenge the authority of the leader there. Blue studies Erica's face, but she doesn't seem to be judging him. I didn't really see it that way at the time. But yeah, I guess I did, where it made sense to. The gym leader nods. Wisdom is a hard trait to define in any one way, but knowing when to be humble before institutional knowledge, and when to trust your own instincts and reasoning is a big part of it, in my view. What do you know that you don't know? Blue isn't sure if the question is rhetorical, but the feeling that this isn't just a casual chat is pretty solid now, and he's more eager than before not to waste the opportunity. A lot, really. I have questions that seem like they don't have real answers about a few different things. If I had to pick one, it would be about the way I relate to the others in my group. Understandable, she says, as she tips another palm full of dry bits of leaf into a small bowl beside the pot. Did you pick that in specific because you know what my specialty is, as a leader? Blue blinks. No. I know what it is in relation to Pokemon battles, obviously. She flashes him a grin. What is it? Status effects, Goes hand in hand with focusing on grass types, but I'm not sure what that has to do with... Oh. He narrows his eyes at her. Are you about to make a pun? I am, she says, sounding pleased. And you have no room to complain given your earlier compliment. That was my friend Leaf's fault. Blue sighs. I guess you can say she planted the seed? Blue grins despite himself. She'll be tickled by that. So, your specialty as a leader is status, both in and out of the arena? It is, so far as I can judge such things at least. So let me quiz your understanding of status. Why did I call you here? Blue half expected this question, and has been considering this since he got the message. With her recent remarks, the answer is obvious. It's a status move. You're inviting me directly to talk so we can form a relationship right away. You as the mentor, of course, and me as the up-and-coming star student. And uniquely so, she says, as she tips more dried leaf into the bowl, then takes a sip from her cup, studying him over the rim. There's no public perception of you being particularly close to Brock or Misty in your time there. And as for Vermilion Jim, your position is widely perceived as being against Surge. The collaboration began with your challenge to him, and then he took that challenge and threw it back at you, and you rose to the occasion before moving on with a victory none who came before could claim. Blue slowly nods. He can see it the more she talks, a flower unfolding petal by petal. Even if no one else knows what we talk about, and it only happens this once, you create some intrigue by just talking in private with me. But if we continue meeting and that perception grows, then I'm an extra rose in your garden. Every time I get status, you'd get some too. More than that, I am actually teaching you. She grins. Perhaps someday you'll learn all I know and surpass me, which is a prestige all teachers aspire to. If not, then you will always know that you can turn to me to learn more, even if you someday become my peer or superior in other ways. When, he corrects her, though he's grinning too. This is shaping up to be a fantastic conversation, though part of that might just be the effects of the tea. When, she allows, and takes another sip of tea. In any case, I believe you're the kind of person who will feel gratitude and show it, as long as the advice is genuinely useful. We may even develop a true friendship. I'm certainly motivated to see if it's possible. Yeah, works for me. In a way, it's everything Blue wanted. No, expected to someday hear from a gym leader. An acknowledgement of not just his skill, but the usefulness of a positive relationship with him. It's the kind of relationship he always knew he'd need to accomplish his goals. But I have to ask, he says after a moment. Why do it like this? We already had history. You could have just called me over to chat, arranged another meeting later, let things grow normally. Well, for starters, you already have plenty of relationships that grew organically. I want ours to be unique in some way, and this is a simple way to do so. It's a risk, of course, but I judged you would be the kind of person who appreciates it. I don't believe I was wrong. Blue smiles. Nope. And the second? She shrugs a shoulder. In such relationships, with such power dynamics involved, everyone is already aware of the most basic implications, at least, but they're rarely acknowledged. That the older person has more accrued power, that the younger person has more potential power, that the richer has more resources to draw on, while the poorer may at some point have need of them, that the leader has responsibilities that take precedence over friendships, while the professor's grandson will likely be loyal to his family. It's tiring sometimes having to guess as to what people are thinking, how much is influencing their decisions. When I can, it's something of a relief to foster relationships where status is acknowledged and can be brought up and discussed without worry of offending someone. Above anything else she's said already, Blue feels the most flattered by that, which may be its intention, of course, but it's true. He does think it would be a relief to have things like that acknowledged and obvious in the relationship. It always made him feel a little awkward sometimes, how much more money he had than Red, how much Red clearly idolized his grandfather. He doesn't really think it's the reason they were friends. Their families practically raised them together, and they became friends long before Red got so interested in Pokemon research. But it was always in the back of his mind, and he would be surprised if it never occurred to Red though not as much as others. Smart as he could be, Red's always been a bit of an idiot about stuff like that. Thanks for trusting me with this, Blue says. It also lets me talk about what I'm here for. Not just a badge, she guesses. I won't be upset if I just get a badge. But yeah, I don't mind admitting that if I see something here that I think can be done better, it would be great to get more momentum in doing that kind of thing. Erica nods and grins at him. Then allow me to present my counteroffer. You battle me for your badge tonight. No qualifying matches, no tests, just straight to the challenge. Blue blinks at her, mouth opening to ask what, and then closing because he heard her perfectly well. Instead, he thinks through the implications of the proposal, given what they talked about earlier. From a public perspective, it would be a huge deal for him. If he wins, it would be the fastest anyone has ever gotten a badge after arriving at a gym, faster even than he hoped to get his pewter badge. But it would just be too sad to have walked in here and gotten to step ahead of everyone else. If it was still just him and Leaf and Red, he might have said yes, thinking the others would be just as happy moving on to the next city earlier than expected. And if he hadn't lost to Brock, he might have said yes, despite having barely any time to train with his fire Pokemon, overconfident in his own abilities. Instead, he turns her question over and over in his thoughts as she continues to add bits of dry leaf to the teapot, considering it from as many angles as he can, until he finally asks, why? He's pretty sure of his answer, but he wants to know her reasoning first, just in case. For one thing, it takes your momentum and makes it serve both of us, Erica says. Let's be honest, there's no reason to make you do any preliminary matches. My second and third might give you some trouble, but I'm confident you would beat them both. Thus, we would save everyone some time, and you get a chance at your badge quickly, while I get recognized as someone who spotted a rising star and helped him shine. On top of that, with all due respect, I don't want you to wreck my garden. Blue blinks, thinking of some of the damage he and the group did to gym grounds and fields outside the city during their scenarios. You mean that literally, or both? I don't suspect you would like my gym culture. Perhaps you'd have suggestions, and I'm happy to entertain them. In private. Well, as Surge handled the situation, I have no intention of letting you posture on stage and call me out in public. I wouldn't, Blue quickly says, and then realizes that it's just happened. She's exercising her status over him, and he feels a need to submit to it. After what she said, he was expecting a more collaborative friendship, though she didn't say they were there yet. This is still a meeting between a student and teacher, at best. She's pressuring him to demonstrate that he knows it's her gym, to acknowledge her superiority within her domain. Not subtly, but then she doesn't need to be subtle about it right now, when they just talked about it so explicitly. That bothers him, because he can't allow himself to think that way, even for people he likes and respects. Even if she has everything figured out, he has to assume there's something she might be doing that can be improved, or else he's just another challenger or member, and not her future champion. I mean, I wouldn't do it without talking to you about it first. I'm not out to embarrass anyone. I tried to talk to Surge before our match, but he was too busy. I just want to make Kanto as strong as I can. I admire that, truly, and I wish you well. Her gaze moves to his, and her smile barely softens the steel in her eyes. But not here. This is my garden. I cultivated it to meet my values, to be the thing in the world I devote my life to protecting. Look around you. Do you think there's a single bush here that I haven't taken time to ensure the quality of? That sounds like a huge waste of time to Blue, but he knows better than to say that. No one values honesty that much. Well, except maybe Gramps, but Erica's not him. Well, with all due respect as well, leader, I'll have to decline. It's a generous offer, but I came to your garden with others, and even if I get my badge, I would stay for their sake. And let's not pretend you're not their leader, regardless of whether some have more badges than you or stronger Pokemon. You getting your badge in such an unprecedented way would further cement that, and increase their prestige as well for being a part of your group. Blue looks at his tea, then takes another sip, feeling the spicy autumn breeze flavor fill his senses. I was told once that my dream isn't the bright beacon I want it to be. That it sucks the oxygen out of the room, demoralizes others instead of keeping them striving to be their best. I worked hard to push the other way in the past couple months, but this feels like it would be just turning things back around. You are not the same person you were 2 months ago, nor was your legend. Perhaps your journey mates wouldn't mind as much as you think. It might even make them feel proud to be on the journey with you, train that much harder to keep up and feel worthy of it. He could see that. He could see Elaine's glee, hear Glenn's congratulations, feel the quiet awe of Lizzie and Slava and the others, but he could also imagine Glenn's hidden disappointment. They were as close to partners as they could be in Vermilion, co-leaders designing the scenarios together. He's probably wondering if that's over, now that they're not doing it anymore. Elaine has grown so much more confident, gotten so much better at speaking her mind, but he thinks she still holds back sometimes when she disagrees with him, despite his efforts to make sure everyone feels like they have a voice. Slava and Sumi weren't in Vermilion with them for the storm or badge. They probably already feel like outsiders. It's bad enough to have 2 groups in the group. Getting his badge ahead of the others would propel him into a third all by himself. I've been reading this book Gramps gave me, he says as he turns his teacup in his palms. Nobunaga's Ambition. I'm not much of a reader, but it's Gramps, you know. Erica grins. I do. If Professor Oak tells you to read something, you read it. Blue nods. Still, it's been slow going. It's an interesting enough book, all about how a warlord very nearly united the island. I know of Oda Nobunaga, Erica says, her smile a bit wry now. Every leader and elite on the island has probably read that book at one point or another. Not that it's widely advertised, so you're not to blame for not knowing that. And I'm not surprised your grandfather didn't mention it when he gave it to you. Ugh. Yeah, he probably didn't want it to. What's he always call it? Anchor me or whatever. He's still annoyed. He would definitely have made more time to read it if he knew that. And why hadn't Gramps given it to him before his journey, when he had more free time? Well, other than maybe because he didn't read anything that didn't have to do with Pokemon battles back then. Anyway, I'm not far in it, but there was a thing about how leaders always stand at the top alone, right? It's a bit different nowadays unless you're champion. But you still have your domain, and the decisions about what to do in it are all on you, or else you're not really in charge. Even the League can't come down here and tell you what to do differently, not unless you're really screwing things up, and then they just challenge you and crush you and run things themselves. Erica nods, watching him curiously as her bayleaf butts its head against her hand for more pets. She gives them to it, expertly avoiding the sharp edges of the broad leaf growing from its forehead. I don't want to be that kind of champion, but also don't want to leave things the way they are. I can't, not if I want to do everything I need to do. But I don't know how to get the right balance of power. If I accept your offer, I'm one step closer to the leader who leads alone. If I don't, I understand, Erica says, and takes on a lecturing tone. That's the volatile nature of power, of status, and why some cultures had many names for the different types. Names that have been mostly lost with the global adoption of Unknown. Names like Octoritas, the power you wield over someone when they respect you. A celebrity has this, but it should not be confused with mere social status. It can affect real change, if wielded properly. Potestas, the power that comes from a more official position, such as a judge has, irrespective of their popularity and enforced by the state. Imperium, the highest ability to command, those who have no equals within their domain, such as a leader or champion, which, as you noted, are hierarchical, but not quite overlapping. A champion cannot dictate what a leader does within their gym, though both of their authorities are not just potestas, but often blended with Octoritas as well. And so there is still some blurring in the balance of power. Blue feels like he should be taking notes, but instead he just drinks more tea and leans forward, fascinated. This is the kind of thing he was looking for, the kind of thing he tried explaining to Red once, but without the right words. When your face is often broadcast in the news, your Octoritas grows significantly compared to those who are never in the public eye. Your advice becomes heated, because obviously you must be successful in some regard to have been given a microphone. She smirks slightly. With that form of status, you can draw attention where you will, amplify your preference, and leverage public support against an official to some degree. If they have potestas but lack Octoritas, They will likely retain their position up to a point, even as they lose influence, until they are effectively crippled, if the difference becomes drastic enough. After that point, they will often lose potestas as well. Can't the same be said of Imperium? Blue asks, wondering if this is what she fears. If it's what Surge feared, in some way, when Blue openly challenged his gym's methods. Not often. Auctoritas is often a precursor to potestas, but not always, and rarely is it a factor for Imperium, in our culture at least. But once you gain Imperium, you gain Auctoritas, whether you want it or not. Some official positions generate status all on their own, just by holding them. To gain more Auctoritas than someone with Imperium, especially within their own domain, is exceedingly difficult. A professor who tried to advise a champion would likely be respectfully listened to, but if they challenged them, their words would have very little actual weight, unless they were once champion themselves, and even then the lack of Imperium would affect the interaction. Blue nods, thinking things over as the distant sounds of the gym drift to them on the breeze. In Vermilion Gym, the noise of others battling and training was constant, but here all the greenery dampens it. And of course, there aren't any drill instructors yelling. The muted noises of others in the distance just add to the peaceful atmosphere. You're saying Auctoritas is important, but only up to a point, he finally says. That I need as much as I can get, but not to push it, not to spend it carelessly against someone who holds Imperium. Such is my advice, as someone who holds Imperium to someone who does not, Erica says, and smiles. Self-serving as it is, I trust you see the wisdom in it. I do, Blue says, and means it. Thanks, but I'm still not going to take you up on your offer. Erica's brow rises, but she nods. Even if I extend it to the rest of your group? Shit. That's a tougher one, and he should have thought to ask for it himself. He hesitates, unsure if he can decide something like this for them. But no, he has to, since she wouldn't say yes to the others but not to him if he bows out, and he wouldn't do it himself even if they all wanted to. Even then. Interesting. Say more? It's not just about the Auctoritas. I need to set an example by how I acquire it. I need others to want to follow in my footsteps, and not just people who are like me, with all the privileges I've had. Most trainers are not going to be able to walk into a gym and get invited to a quick challenge match. You're worried about the perception of nepotism. More than that, most people probably wouldn't think it's that direct. I mean, obviously you know Gramps, but most leaders do. If I earn more status that way, it just makes what I do seem that much more a result of my circumstances, even if it's built on my previous accomplishments. Each achievement needs to feel fair. I know I can't actually make that true, but I can at least turn down obviously unfair ones. Erica slowly nods, quietly working as she thinks. Finally, she tips another palm full of herbs into the bowl and smiles. I agree. And I'm still not going to set up preliminary matches for you. Blue blinks. But instead, you're going to study my gym. We'll continue to meet each day to discuss what you think of it. Perhaps you come up with some suggestions I find worth implementing, but regardless, we won't make a secret of what you're doing. It will cement you instead as, let's say a student of gym culture, or even an apprentice gym advisor. Blue laughs. There's no such thing as gym advisors, are there? Except maybe league officials? No, not by that title at least. You'll be the first, which is why you'll be an apprentice. Her eyes gleam merrily. Even if you're the foremost gym advisor in the world, you still have to start at the bottom. You may still do some preliminary matches if you want, but with this new lens over it. And best of all, everyone in my group can get in on it, he says, grinning wide as he considers it, and laughs again, delighted by the idea. He could do this. In fact, he's excited to do it. And if they play it right, they'll arrive at the next gym with people already expecting them to put on the same hat, whether the leader collaborates or not. Well then, Leader Erica. He holds up his cup, and she clinks hers against it. Consider us hired.
This has been an AI reading of the Pokemon fanfic, Pokemon, The Origin of Species, written by Daystar Eld. If you enjoy this work, please visit patreon.com/daystareld, where you can support the author. Additionally, if you enjoyed this podcast and wish to help support the creation of others like it, you can visit patreon.com/askwhocastsai, where we are releasing episodes 4 weeks in advance of the regular feed. Thanks for listening.